The courage to choose yourself, breaking cycles of abuse through boundaries. The first time I interviewed Annie Thomas, I was struck by something extraordinary. There was a quality in her voice, a quiet, unwavering strength that only comes from walking through fire and emerging not just intact, but transformed. Annie has dedicated her life to empowering women, particularly Black women, to recognize their worth and protect it fiercely. Her impact on making the world safer for vulnerable individuals cannot be overstated. She's become the voice many wish they had heard before entering dangerous relationships, the lighthouse guiding countless women away from treacherous shores. What if the most courageous thing you could do wasn't staying? What if it was leaving? We've all heard those stories, haven't we? The ones where someone stays through the rough patches, where loyalty is measured by how much pain you can endure, where love is confused with sacrifice until there's nothing left to give. Our culture celebrates endurance, persistence, fighting for relationships. But today I want to talk about a different kind of courage, the kind Annie Thomas embodies and teaches, the courage to recognize red flags early, the courage to set boundaries immediately, and most importantly, the courage to walk away at the first sign of disrespect. Because here's what nobody tells you about abusive relationships: they rarely start with violence, they start with charm, with excessive attention that feels flattering, with small boundary violations that seem insignificant, until suddenly you're isolated, confused, and wondering how you got there. Annie's first lesson is crystal clear. Recognize the warning signs early. Extreme jealousy isn't flattering, it's controlling. When someone tries to isolate you from friends and family, they're not protecting your relationship, they're removing your support system. When they monitor your movements, your phone, your social media, that's not care, that's surveillance. These behaviors aren't love, they're the scaffolding for abuse. But recognizing these patterns requires something many of us weren't taught: that our instincts matter, that the small voice inside saying something feels off deserves our full attention, that the discomfort we feel when boundaries are tested isn't oversensitivity, it's wisdom. I'm reminded of Dawn Kelly, founder of the Nourish Spot in Queens. After being unexpectedly let go from her corporate job, Dawn could have internalized that rejection. Instead, she recognized it as an opportunity to build something meaningful with her daughter. Despite facing systemic barriers common among Black women entrepreneurs, limited funding access, and higher loan denial rates, Dawn set clear boundaries around her vision. She refused to let others define her worth or limit her potential. Today, the Nourish Spot isn't just a business, it's a thriving health hub offering jobs and mentorship to youth while fostering community wellness. Dawn leveraged digital tools like Google Business Profile and Instagram for visibility and sought mentorship through local economic programs. She created a successful business model that serves as both an economic engine and safe space for young women in the community. Dawn's story shows us that setting boundaries, refusing to accept mistreatment or limitations imposed by others, can lead not only to personal healing, but to empowering entire communities. Her journey embodies what happens when we trust ourselves enough to say no to disrespect and yes to our own vision. This brings us to Annie's second crucial insight: set clear boundaries immediately in relationships. Boundaries aren't walls, they're not about keeping people out, they're about teaching people how to come in. They define what's acceptable and what isn't. They communicate your non negotiables, your deal breakers, your absolute limits. And here's the part that's hardest to accept: Boundaries without consequences aren't boundaries at all. They're suggestions, wishes, hopes. Real boundaries come with action, with the understanding that if someone crosses them, you will protect yourself, even if that means walking away, even if that means being called too sensitive or dramatic or difficult, even if that means being alone. Dr. Stephanie Brown's Black Successful Women podcast features countless stories of women who've learned this lesson, sometimes the hard way. This podcast highlights Black women who have overcome adversity, including abusive environments, to achieve professional success across sectors like law, medicine, academia, and entrepreneurship. Many guests recount experiences with discrimination or toxic relationships requiring resilience and boundary setting. They share strategies like seeking mentors and support networks, prioritizing self care, and drawing hard lines against disrespectful treatment at work or home. Listeners report feeling empowered, armed with practical advice on how early recognition of red flags leads directly to safer outcomes professionally and personally. What's powerful about these stories is how they normalize conversations about leaving unsafe situations immediately rather than rationalizing harmful behavior. They reinforce Annie's message that when it comes to your safety or dignity, second chances aren't required. This leads us to Annie's third and perhaps most revolutionary teaching. Your strength lies in leaving, not staying. Our culture often romanticizes endurance. We celebrate those who weather storms, who don't give up, who fight for relationships. And sometimes that's appropriate. Healthy relationships do require work, but abuse isn't a storm to weather. It's not a challenge to overcome together. It's a clear signal that something is fundamentally broken. Annie is unequivocal on this point. The first instance of physical, sexual, or emotional disrespect should be your last chance given. Protecting yourself and your children, if you have them, must always come first. This isn't about being unforgiving. It's about recognizing that abuse rarely happens just once. It follows patterns, it escalates, and each time you stay after a boundary is violated, you inadvertently communicate that your boundaries are flexible. Consider the story of a former Ivy League professor who reached career heights but faced burnout due largely to overwork, a pattern common among high achieving Black women who feel pressured never to rest lest they lose ground professionally. Systemic bias meant working twice as hard was often expected just to keep up. She internalized this pressure and ignored warning signs until her health and safety were threatened. Her journey began with internalizing blame. Maybe it's me. But healing started when she recognized it was the system, not herself, that needed changing. She pivoted toward entrepreneurship out of necessity, not just ambition, to reclaim autonomy over her time and energy. Setting new boundaries became essential, including declining projects that did not serve her well being. The result? Greater sustainability and happiness while inspiring other Black women entrepreneurs nationwide. The number grew nearly 20% between 2017 2020 alone. She became part of a movement centering rest and self respect at the heart of success models for Black professional women everywhere. This case underscores Annie's insight that lasting change starts within, from believing we deserve more than survival mode and acting accordingly at every stage and relationship in our lives. For too long, Black women especially have carried the strong Black woman stereotype as both shield and burden. We've been expected to endure, to carry on, to hold families and communities together regardless of personal cost. But what if true strength looks different? What if it looks like saying no without guilt, like walking away from situations that diminish you, like choosing yourself, even when others call you selfish for it? Annie challenges every listener, especially young Black women, to trust their instincts when something feels off in any relationship, romantic or otherwise. Set firm boundaries from day one. Don't negotiate your safety for anyone else's comfort or approval. As Audre Lorde powerfully stated, caring for myself is not self indulgence, it is self preservation, and that is an act of political warfare. When Black women choose themselves, when they refuse to accept mistreatment, when they walk away from abuse, it isn't just personal healing, it's revolutionary. I want to be clear, leaving an abusive situation isn't always simple or safe. There are complex factors: financial dependence, children, isolation, fear, that can make escape difficult. This isn't about blaming victims, it's about empowering potential victims before abuse takes root. It's about creating a world where we recognize red flags early, where we trust our instincts, where we know our worth isn't negotiable. So today I'm asking you to do something radical. I'm asking you to redefine courage, to see that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away, to understand that protecting yourself isn't selfish, it's sacred. If you're in a relationship where your boundaries are consistently violated, where your voice is silenced, where your worth is diminished, know this: you deserve better. And the path to better begins with a single step away. If you know someone who's struggling, be the voice that says, I believe you. This isn't your fault, and you don't have to stay. If you're raising children, teach them that love never hurts. That respect isn't earned, it's required, that their boundaries matter. And if you've already left an abusive situation, I want you to hear this. Your leaving wasn't weakness, it was wisdom. It wasn't giving up, it was rising up. It wasn't the end of your story, it was the beginning of your freedom. The most courageous thing you can do isn't staying, it's recognizing when it's time to leave. And that decision might just save your life.